Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful idea, one that gets right to the heart of religious feeling. We're going to explore a concept that gives a name to something that feels, well, unnameable. And it all comes from a German theologian named Rudolf Otto. So let's get right into it. But before we get to Otto himself, let's start with an experience. A feeling that I bet many of you have had, but might have found it pretty tough to put into words. I mean, really think about it for a second. Maybe you were standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon, or just looking up at a perfectly clear, star-filled night sky. It could even be a moment listening to a piece of music that just floors you. It's that feeling, right? That feeling of being so small, yet somehow connected to something absolutely immense. Well, that feeling actually has a name. Otto called it the numinous. Now here's the crucial part. The numinous isn't about something being good or ethical. It's totally separate from that. It's something else entirely, a raw, pre-rational encounter with a mystery that is somehow both terrifying and deeply fascinating at the same time. So who was the guy who so brilliantly managed to isolate this core human experience and give it a name? All right, let's meet him. This is Rudolf Otto. Now, the world of modern German theology was packed with intellectual heavyweights, absolute giants. But Otto, he carved out his own unique and lasting legacy by focusing not on doctrines or rules, but on the foundational feeling of religion itself. And make no mistake, he was a serious academic heavyweight. His career spanned decades at some of Germany's most prestigious universities. But the year that you really need to remember for our story is 1917. That's when he publishes his landmark book, right in the middle of his time as a professor at Marburg. But Otto was not just some guy locked away in an ivory tower. No, he was deeply invested in the lived, practical side of faith. He wrote prayers, he helped shape worship services, and I think this is fascinating. He built a collection of religious symbols from all over the world, which really shows a profound respect for faiths far beyond his own. So, let's get to that masterpiece, a book that was published at one of the darkest moments in modern history and ended up completely changing how people thought about religion. So, picture this. It's 1917. The First World War is just tearing Europe apart. There's this overwhelming sense of disillusionment. All the old certainties are just crumbling. And it's into this absolute chaos that Otto releases the idea of the holy. And that context, that timing, is exactly why the book was an instant sensation. The purely rational, scientific worldview that seemed so solid before the war suddenly felt completely inadequate to explain the horror or to find any meaning in the chaos. People were searching for something deeper, for a dimension of depth, and Otto's book spoke directly to that hunger. And the impact was immediate. Just listen to what his contemporary Charles A. Bennett had to say. He basically said it was, beyond all question, the most original attempt to get to the very essence of religion. It wasn't just another book. People knew right away it was a game changer. So what was this revolutionary argument? What made it so radically different from how everyone else was talking about religion at the time? Well, at the time, a lot of thinkers tried to explain religion away. They'd say it was just an early, flawed attempt at science, or that it was really nothing more than a system of ethics. Otto rejected all of that. He basically said, no, you're missing the point. Religion isn't a primitive version of something else. It is its own thing, a unique, non-rational category of human experience that has to be understood on its own terms. And he broke this numinous experience down into three parts. First, there's that unique emotional quality. It's not about beauty. It's not about being good. It's something else. Second, this experience gives us its own way of valuing the world and our destiny. And third, it's a direct intuitive awareness of something eternal, a reality that science simply can't measure or describe. Now, of course, Otto wasn't working in a vacuum. He was building on the ideas of other great thinkers. He drew from people like Schleiermacher, who focused on inner feeling, and Fries, who tried to balance faith and reason. And he was deeply grounded in the Lutheran tradition of a personal inner faith. So this was all over a century ago. Why does this idea still matter so much? Why aren't we just talking about a historical footnote here? To really get Otto's relevance, you have to see the intellectual trend he was pushing back against, humanism. This was a worldview that tried to fit everything, including religion, neatly inside the box of human reason. The highest ideals were things like the scientific method and democracy. Great ideas, for sure. But for Otto, they weren't the whole story. And here's Otto's killer insight. When things fall apart in times of war, chaos, or deep personal crisis, a faith that is purely human-centered often just isn't enough. It's in those moments of breakdown that the human spirit cries out for a super-rational meaning, something that goes beyond what our own reason can build or control. And this, right here, is his ultimate enduring legacy. In a world that was rushing to explain everything away, Rudolf Otto drew a line in the sand. By defining the numinous, he didn't just give religion its own turf, he defended it as a fundamental, independent, and powerful part of what it means to be human, something beyond the reach of simple science or moral codes. And that leaves us with a big question for our own time, doesn't it? In an age so driven by data and reason, what space is left for this kind of experience? What is the value of awe, of mystery, of that feeling of the numinous today? It's definitely something to think about.